welcome to a new episode of NABA Meets Alumni. I am here today in English with Ksenia Lukyanova.
Nova, great.
That's good. So let's start with an easy one. When did you graduate and what did you graduate in?
I graduated in February 2019 from Interior Master course.
I'm going to ask you the question that I ask always because I'm interested in knowing, since this is a very creative school, where creativity comes from, where your creativity comes from. Did you grow up in a creative family?
Well, actually, I think creativity was not in an obvious way, but always somewhere around me. I was raised in a family with academic background on one side and aerospace engineers from another side. And actually, from my childhood, my father, holding a degree in thermodynamics and with PhD in economics and being professor of IT now, used to write stories and poems for me. And my mother used to always be there for me, being at the same time an engineer when I was very much into ballet dancing and had a lot of dreams about performance.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. First of all, you're Russian, right?
Yeah, I'm Russian.
So all this is happening in Russia. You have families, doesn't seem creative from the professions of your parents, but you have parents that were very much ready to actually pass you creativity, which is actually interesting because they were creative themselves and they passed it along to you, right? Do you think your parents ever wanted you to continue on a path professionally that was theirs, or were they open to having you go to a path that you went through?
Well, I think they were really, really open. But anyway, at the age of 17, where we in Russia usually have to choose your university and further development, I was completely lost and I didn't have any idea of my future. And thanks to their suggestions for their choice, I hold my first degree in economics and strategic planning, actually. And I would say that that set of mind helped me a lot. And it was a great starting point for all my future jobs because I started first working in HoReCa industry, then in advertising, then in analytics. And yes, and this set of mind still helps me a lot, even at my designer career nowadays.
Interesting. How did you get to NABA? I mean, how did you bump into it?
Well, yes, as I said before, I used to work at analytics, and just one day I realized that numbers are no longer that exciting for me. Need something to do something else, and I started from short courses in decoration and some intensive interior design courses back in Russia, and even began working as an intern in one architectural studio. But beginning working, I realized how lost I am again, and I really need a proper basis in education. And luckily, my friends suggested me to take a wider perspective to have a look at the ranking of best design universities in the world. Yep. And as I was always particularly fond of Italy, I narrowed my choice.
Had you been to Italy before you came here?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Used to travel a lot, but travel is different.
Very
from
different.
the living.
No.
Right.
From living here, yes.
Yeah. So I narrowed my choice to 3 universities here in Milan. I also did some short courses there. Still was a little bit not sure where to go, but happily had a chance to meet with Luca Pancellini, had an introduction talk with him, and just immediately understood where I belonged.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice. How was your experience? Was your experience how you thought it was going to be when you got here? I mean, or did you tell me what you liked, and if there is something that kind of caught you aback, like made you a little like, oh, about your experience here in NABA?
In my case, it was really, really intense because I didn't have a proper architecture background. I was on the same stage, let's say, with the students who did architecture before, and I had to be at the same level. So in a really short period, I had to work really, really hard. And I always wanted to participate in everything, in all the design marathons we did. and all the other workshops that were available at that moment. And so most of the memories, for example, in my case, are related to study process. And maybe one of it was on the first year during project methodology course with Professor Subhash Mukherjee, where every student had to analyze their background from childhood to recent days, choose their own evaluation criteria, and work with this completely unconventional shape. And it was really interesting and a little difficult for my very rational mind. And even define the space we had and create an interior and make the physical model. And I remember that in my case, it was the cultural center, and I placed it in Milan. And it's interesting how recently I went to that area. And I saw actually the new built high-rise building with the same structure I had in mind 5 years ago.
Oh, that's great.
So yes, be careful, future students. NABA make you foresee the future. So, yeah.
That's good. I like that. Do you still have that drawing that you did?
Yeah, I even had the physical model.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think, we spent so many times working in the lab with Carmelo.
Yeah.
And it's great how often he was very open and very supportive to all of our insane project ideas. And for example, for that particular project, I think I made 3 or 5 models, and one still at my place.
That's great. What's your inspiration? What inspires you when you work? Inspiration comes from life, from your background, from you with life, from the moment.
It depends. It's very different from project to project. Usually it's a great combination of everything. Sometimes you travel, you see some buildings or some, I don't know, some plant even. You just, okay, it's interesting. I'll think about it later. And you just collect all these memories, and then suddenly they just bump in your mind.
Do you take notes, or do you keep them in your head?
Sometimes keep notes, sometimes making photos, sometimes put them in a folder. That, okay, maybe one day I'll use it.
Yes.
And usually it's the combination, as I said, of factors, and it's also very much affected on the people with whom I'm working in the current projects.
Yes.
And usually it's very inspiring personalities, very true professionals, as I work in art business. And the creators, the artists, they all their own role in their mind. And it's always very interesting to learn from them as well in every project.
Do you think that you've had people in your life that have helped you move around in your kind of path? Do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody that actually pushed you in the right direction?
I think for different periods of life, we have different mentors. And in childhood, it's our family. For me, it was also my grandmother who took me from the ballet dancing and said, okay, now you have to think about something else. And we changed the school with a very mathematical direction. And, well, it set my mind, as I said before. Then my parents, and then my relatives, my close ones. So you always just look around and you see these people.
Yeah,
so.
and because sometimes they're not necessarily, it's not like a lifetime process. Sometimes it's just like a little push,
True.
you know, when you're like deciding what to do, and you're like, oh, that's interesting that happened because that person actually talks to me, you know,
Right.
sometimes. So you graduate from NABA, and then what happens?
Well, actually, I started my career even during the last year of NABA. I did my thesis, the final project about exhibition design. And it was great that, in fact, it was realized in Multimedia Art Museum in Moscow in 2018.
Nice.
And Luca, by the way, was my mentor
Yes.
at that point. So, of course, I'm very thankful to what he did in my life. And from that moment on, I began my very close cooperation with one of the best Russian production team in art business at Triumph Gallery in Moscow. And we did a huge amount of projects. For example, just recently I realized my 25th exhibition project at
Wow.
National Decorative, All Russian Decorative Art Museum in Moscow.
Wow.
Yes.
So explain to me what the last exhibition that you actually just worked on is as far as the input, the creative input that you put into it. Is it the experience that you work on? Like how people actually go through the show, or is it the actual show?
It's everything at the moment.
Yeah.
And yes, first you start from the pieces, from the exhibits with which you work, then the artists as well, the curators, the museum team, and everyone is very involved. First you work with curator, you developing the concept, and then you just have to face the reality to see what you really can do.
Yes.
And all this is quite different from what you first had in mind.
Yes.
Actually, this is what happened with my very first project.
Yes.
In fact, I did two completely different projects. One very conceptual one and one which was realized. At the same time, it was really, really thin line which was crossing. And actually, what I really like in my in what I'm doing is that this area, the working with art, the museums, um, except the people with whom you work, it's very interesting in terms of research topics you take every time, and it has the proper deadline, mostly. Yeah, not like with building
Most of
a
the
house.
times.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yes.
And sometimes it can be just you have to do research about Soviet art glass or the Japanese artistic traditions or Russian historical paintings of 18th and 19th century. Well, different techniques of contemporary art. For example, we had one project where just in one exhibition we had 400 exhibits, including avant-garde drawings, paintings,
Wow.
mechanical constructions, sound and lights installations from 70s, and lots of contemporary art pieces. And it was an exhibition about kinetic art in Russia. First, it took place in St. Petersburg, Menage, and it has the area of 4,000 square meters.
Wow.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it only worked for 2 weeks as the lockdown started.
Oh.
Yes, and
So unlucky.
yes, luckily we did a 3-day shooting, and afterwards we had a great chance to create a new version of this project in Moscow in the new Tretyakov Gallery.
Nice.
And it has a very different setting, but still it had the same idea and was quite successful. Everyone, it was the exhibition for everyone, for kids, because there were lots of models for. Yes.
So, sorry if I'm interrupting you, but when you say we had the same idea, it's the idea of the exhibit, right? Like the idea of what you want people to understand when they're walking through it. Is that what it is?
Yes, and also the concept. Although the space is very different,
Yes.
the location, because in Menage in St. Petersburg, it's very strict corridors, and only the upper floor has the open area.
Yes.
In the Tretyakov Gallery, it was almost the square of 3,000 square meters and one little corridor. So the way how people interact with artworks was really different, but we kept the color scheme more or less. We had 4 sections, 4 mixed sections, so it was more or less the same. And we even added more pieces in Moscow. It was really, really interesting. And actually in August, this project received the National Art Award,
Wow.
Innovation as Project of the Year of 2020.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I think it's very interesting that people don't really realize that there are professions that you feel that are very quiet and behind closed doors, right? People think that you go to an exhibit and just walk around and you see the show, right? You see somebody went and hung and hung a piece on the wall, or just decided very things like you would in your house. But in the same way you do it in your house,
Sure.
it's an experience that you want people to go through, right? So color, lighting, passage, how much distance there is from a piece, if a piece requires distance, right? If it's a digital piece, you have to have, you have to hide things. It's very interesting to me that there is a profession that is so strongly related to design and creativity and how people perceive it, but it's related to the experience of the person. It's experiential. And that I think is becoming very, very cool, in the professional world, right? To the experiential world of advertising, the experiential world of an art show, and the experiential world of a store. So it's interesting that you actually have found your world, which in a weird way has a lot to do with also your growing up in a economic / engineering world, right? So it is part of your background, and it has it in it, in a weird way, because you have to learn that, So I'm going to ask you a question that I ask at the very, very end. First of all, was it difficult to this conversation? No, it was easy.
No,
Right?
I'm happy to be here.
No, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy we did it live.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, you're, freshly graduated, but you're very successful and you're doing really great things and you're winning awards. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, last 5 years were extremely intense.
Yes.
Taking into account I started my degree here in 2016.
Yes.
And now I'm here.
Yes.
So I just hope the next 5 years I will be able to investigate, to develop my professional skills further, to open new horizons, to develop some fascinating international cultural initiatives, and definitely remember about life-working balance.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Ksenia, I can't really thank you enough for coming here, for chatting with me and giving your experience at NABA and your experience in life. I wish you all the best in the world. I wish you the best of luck. And until next time.
Yeah, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
again.
much as well.